What's up, everyone? It is 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon, which means you're tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News. I'm producer Lauren, and today we're joined by Seth Morris from Berry Law out in Nebraska. He's going to tell us about the ballot initiative that Nebraskans will see on their ballot this November. But first, we do have to get into a little bit of cannabis legalization news. So, Miggy and Tom, what's going on?
What's up? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Wednesday at 2 o'clock. It means cannabis legalization news is on the air. And if you guys are enjoying the show, please do give us some likes, some subscribes. It's literally what feeds this channel. That, and then you can applaud now, and you can also use, what do they call that? Super chat.
Super chat, yeah. So, yeah, donate, help.
Don't forget that. So, man, did you you want to start off the news summary, or should I?
Oh, I just thought it was interesting. Did you see the marijuana moment? President Carter talking about the infamous story about his son smoking weed with Willie Nelson in the White House?
I did. It was in the news this week. And so what was some of the information regarding the Willie Nelson story? What's the gist?
I just find it as confirmation. I mean, that story's been going on for years, right? No one has ever had actual substantial support of, like, yeah, it happened, you know? So
Yeah.
you think Willie Nelson was always on the slide, like, I smoked weed in the White House, but not with who?
Well, it was described as a fat Austin torpedo.
Oh, is that what
How Willie Nelson described the joint that he smoked with Jimmy Carter's son, a fat Austin torpedo.
I want one.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, like, who wouldn't? The one that I liked that I saw going around was out of the Hill, actually, and it shows how widestream it is. 1 in 20 older Americans regularly smoke marijuana. Now, 1 in 20, that's only like 5%. What do they consider to be older Americans? Older than aged 55. So 5%, right? That's 1 in 20.
Fuck, I'm so close to that age.
Well, you're already overrepresentative of yourself. Good work on that.
Right. Hey, I got another positive story poll. Here's one from Mississippi. 81% of Mississippians.
Ooh, because I think Mississippi is a ballot state. Lauren, please confirm with us if Mississippi's a ballot state, and maybe we'll find an activist because today we have a good one about Nebraska. And so we're going to be learning up all about Nebraska's interesting oneness policy. And what's that mean? Well, yeah, stick around because we'll talk all about how medical marijuana is probably going to play out in Nebraska. But then the other thing that I saw that I thought was just like Geechee. It's not really that. It's not even really news. So in celebrity opinion news, Seth Rogen's advice on ending coronavirus is to smoke weed and watch movies. I can't do a Seth Rogen impersonation. That was like literally the first half-assed one I've ever tried, and I apologize for it. I'm going to have to go tweet apologies about a terrible half-assed Seth Rogen impersonation.
I just got to say, I'm already ahead of the game.
Oh, yeah? Because you've been smoking weed and watching movies?
That's all I do, man. Or play video games.
Well, you also had the coronavirus in January, remember? You had it before it was cool.
Yeah. Oh, God, please.
Before the shop.
And if it wasn't, I don't want the coronavirus because that was bad when I had whatever the fuck it was.
Oh, wow. Somebody that I know finally has tested for it. I'm like, oh, wow, I actually know somebody who has it now. Because that's what I do. I just hang out and work and try to avoid the coronavirus these days. It's been a hell of a year, man.
Hell yeah. Well, you kind of been avoiding it for the past 2 years, haven't you?
The coronavirus? No, it's only been since like March.
I meant you're working from home.
Working from home. Well, I've been working I was like biphasic. I had more than one office. And so I'd be in Chicago 50% of the time before Chicago got basically shut down, or like all the events are like Zoom conferences now. So it was very surreal back in like March, where the world turned into this podcast.
That's pretty good.
Well, because like we had been doing it for like a year by then. And so like, it was kind of normal for us. And then suddenly everywhere.
We were cool before it was.
Did
Hey,
you have some other news, dude?
Huh?
Did you have some other news?
Oh, I just have some funny shit here. Did you see the one with the elephant getting CBD?
Oh, yeah. We talked about the elephant getting CBD last round. And so like, what's the status update on them getting CBD? Anything?
I think he's not as sad.
How can you tell if he's not as sad?
I don't know. I mean, I imagine his mannerisms and whatnot from what they're doing. But
yeah.
And did you see that police raid in Oakland, though? I mean, on the
no, I didn't. What happened to the police raid in Oakland before we get to like the biggest news of the week?
Yeah, so there was an Oakland church, marijuana and mushrooms.
All right, so it's an Oakland church, and they seize marijuana and mushrooms. Once again, RFRA does not apply to drugs. The right, what is it? The RFRA stands for the Restore Your Freedoms and First Amendment and Religion Act or something. RFRA has never applied to cannabis. And so that's why you always see those cannabis churches get shut down like that. And then, of course, they were going with mushrooms, too. But I bet that was one hell of a service, dude.
It's just crazy, though, it always bothers me how the government can just set this line of what is religion, what's not, right? You can believe in your own magical sky god, or you can believe in a plant. I mean,
but we have like American religions too. But like as soon as that American religion tries to adopt weed and mushrooms, it's suddenly not protected. I mean, like the spaceships, that's okay, bro. You know, you could believe in that. Zephulax or whatever the fuck, the Zeons and Nuons. There's some weird freaking religions that America has made, you know?
Yeah, for real though. And then we got other stuff, right?
Like the biggest news, and like it's kind of duplicative almost now because of our show over the weekend with the Drug Policy Alliance when we did the update on the MORE Act, and so we kind of covered this already. But then a couple hours ago, here we are on September 2nd. So they are going to vote. GOP congressman says he's going to vote yes on marijuana legalization despite reparations concerns. And so the MORE Act hopefully is going to be actually up for a vote on the House of Representatives Chamber of Commerce Congress in September, hopefully September 21st that week. So join us, the likes and the subscribes, and then join us, you know, to watch live as we talk about did your congressman vote yes for the MORE Act. That'll be pretty.
Matt Getz who said that?
Who's that? Oh.
Was that Matt Getz who said that? That guy's kind of a douche.
It was Tom McClintock, he says, but then, Oh, no, you're going up, and now I see a Getz name. Where's this Matt Getz from?
He does a podcast. Oh, he's Florida.
Oh, hot takes with Matt Getz. Hey, let's see if we can get Matt Getz on the program and see if he has a hot take on what he thinks the MORE Act has to offer and why he's going to support it. Maybe you could drop us a little something.
I would hope so, just for, you know, the whole reparations thing, too, though. I hate when these conservative people, whatever, refer to reparations as a negative. Like, you know, the marijuana reparations is going to come out of taxes anyways.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I think reparations is rebranding itself as social equity, because to understand it in concepts of equity as opposed to in concepts of reparations, which implies that you're getting something for free, or it implies that what you're doing is beyond the bounds of reasonableness, as opposed to equity, where it's like, no, like you built this wealth right on our backs, and then you systematically kept us out of all these programs for decades. And you're still hurting us with the drug war. And if we try to restructure that to undo all the harms through the regulatory harms that were literally on them, like it was fucking legal to have slaves. Yeah. You know, and because of that, and then not only that, you know, just the systematic racism in the United States. I mean, I'm not saying that we're perfect, obviously, but that I think is where the point of, I mean, if you call them reparations, that's one thing. But if you see it as like a thing in equity where they have not been made whole and they have not been given the same opportunities as people like me have.
Yeah. Well, we got to remember that, you know, separate drinking fountains were just within our parents' lives.
That's right.
It just wasn't like 100 years ago.
Yeah. They just celebrated the Martin Luther King something. And it wasn't only like 50, 60 years ago. That's it. Yeah,
and people are surprised that we have these discrepancies, these disparities.
It's prejudice, man. And then though it's not all good news in cannabis. I mean, it's not all like, oh my gosh, the MORE Act's going to be in Congress and it might actually pass. You know, there was the news out of the great state of Nebraska. The ballot initiative in medical marijuana is being challenged in court. Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner filed a challenge to the petition for the ballot initiative that got well over the 122,000 signatures it needed, because they're asking if it poses two separate questions in violation of the single question requirement that constitutional, or I think it would be a constitutional amendment in Nebraska requires.
Maybe that our guest could help us with.
Oh, yeah. I think that's it.
So, hey, Seth, what's going on?
Hey, how are you guys doing? Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Berry Law?
Yeah. So me personally, I represent with the status of marijuana currently being illegal in the state of Nebraska. So my job is to represent those charged with crimes from border to border, right? We have offices in Lincoln and in Omaha, but anywhere in Nebraska where you are being prosecuted for a crime for the possession of cannabis and even sometimes CBD, I am there to represent your interests.
Nice.
Cool, dude. Well, thanks for coming on to talk to us. So what's going on with the ballot initiative process to legalize medical marijuana in the Cornhusker state?
Yes. Yep. The Cornhusker state.
I knew that one. South Dakota? What do you think South Dakota's is?
Well, their advertising is meth, we're on it.
I know. We laughed about that, but we didn't know what it was called. I was like, South Dakota, the what state? You know, I guess Illinois, the land of Lincoln.
Yeah. That was that's going to live on in infamy, that advertising campaign. But here we are, we're talking about it, right? So it's working, I guess, from that angle.
Sure.
But, yeah. So broad strokes, the ballot initiative has been an overwhelming success from the standpoint of getting people involved. So we have 93 counties in Nebraska. There have been signatures in all 93 counties, right? So from there, you're required to get 122,000. I believe they turned in 185,000.
Oh, wow.
So they, turned in, basically 1.5 times as many as they needed to turn in, because they said, we're not going to get, screwed up on a technicality if someone didn't put their address or something. We're just going to have so many, and we have so many people in favor of it, that it's going to get jammed through. And I think it's going to pass. When I speak to juries on marijuana cases, I just show of hands, tell me who's here in favor of marijuana legalization. Between 2/3 and 3/4 raise their hand. So I don't think it's going to be close. So that's kind of the background. But as far as this initiative, right? So the legal challenge is, so in Nebraska, you can put a constitutional initiative together. And if you meet the requirements, you get the signatures. It has to be so many counties, so many people in these counties. It's going to be on the ballot. But one of the fine-tuned points is it has to only ask one question, right? And so the text of the ballot initiative here, the lawsuit is claiming that it's asking two questions, right? So the text of the ballot says, should the Constitution of Nebraska be amended to provide individuals the right to use, possess, access, purchase, and produce cannabis and cannabis products? So it says, it literally has a number 1 and 2, right? So it says 1 and then 2, and allow private entities and their agents operating in Nebraska to grow, cultivate, and dispense of cannabis. So it's kind of like,
I can hear what the sheriff's talking about. It's like, hey, we're allowed one question. You asked 2. It's like, should the Nebraska Constitution be amended to 1, and then I'm going to yada, yada, yada that. And then, and 2, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm not sure why they drafted it like that.
It's certainly not a meritless complaint, right? Because a lot of times, any big issue like this, there's going to be lawsuits about the language. There's going to be lawsuits about whether or not, because the person that's opposing it, they're going to take every step that they can.
Well,
right?
What about this? This is one of like the so what's of it all, because from my understanding of constitutional analysis, they try to cleave off the least amount of, like, they aren't going to sit there and legislate for them. But if one part is unconstitutional, don't they just cut that out to the certain extent so the thing can still move forward? I mean, is it going to be dispositive, which is just a lawyer word that means you're gone, or like the issue's resolved? Or is it going to just mean what if question 2 would just be cut out? It'd be like, all right, that's too far. It's implicit in the first component. We won't read the second component. Or do they say, no, you have to start over?
That I am unsure of. I think you would have the possibility to narrowly tailor it to fit the requirements, right? Because I almost look at number 2 as how, so basically we're saying that you have the right to, people have the right to possess medical marijuana, and inherent in that is the right for some people to sell it and to, transport it, and all of those things that are involved in our system of commerce. So it seems to me like that wasn't entirely necessary. It's almost inherent, like the Second Amendment has been held that, your right to possess firearms naturally includes ammunition and components. That's naturally included within that. So I'm not entirely sure, because these things, come around so rarely, and, generally it goes on and doesn't affect me. So I don't.
Well, are they trying to disqualify it from the ballot, or can the people still answer it and it just might not be effective?
So I'm guessing that the sheriff is trying to disqualify it from the ballot entirely.
Yeah.
It will be their position, and then basically force, the ballot initiative to hit the reset button.
That sounds so. I mean, think about that, Miggy, because like that is like making my injustice bone just go like ding.
Well, I'm saying, like, what's up with law enforcement to buck these laws? Like as a law enforcement, your job is to shut the fuck up and dribble. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to protect me and work and enforce the things that we establish as a society, as the citizenry. But these guys, why? Is there any pointing out to the sheriff like the conflict of interest of what they're doing and what's going on here for you guys? It's ridiculous.
So we've had kind of I would say a little bit of activism is what I've seen with the Lancaster County government. I know that we had the county attorney I can't remember the exact steps that they were going to take, basically say that the mask mandate wasn't properly enforced by the health director for really minuscule reasons, right? Just like nitpicking hairs on trying to get that out. So we've seen a little bit of activism out of our law enforcement officials in Lancaster County within the last couple of weeks.
That's crazy, dude.
Why? What's up with that? Hey, you know what the other thing is, though? I was wondering if this was a bill. And so is this just that ballot initiative, that one question asked in two parts?
Yeah, so that's why as far as what this is going to look like, I wish I could tell you, right? So we have a lot of dust that needs to settle, right? But the first battle is getting the vote out and getting people to show up on election day and to vote for this, right? So that's the first battle is get this on the I guess the first is actually make it to the ballot, right? Keep this on the ballot. And then the second is get out the votes, for the good people of Nebraska and get this passed.
It's just crazy. What did this guy expect? Like for that one question process for your constitution, like just that one question, should we be legal? Like, is that what he wanted? Because I mean, at that point, you guys should be good to go.
Like you think it would, these lawyers get involved and nothing good happens, right? Right.
That's the thing. Lawyers are orders of complexity magnifiers. You get one lawyer in a room, suddenly nobody can agree with one another. You get two lawyers in the room, now people are not agreeing at all. And then you get three lawyers in the room, it just very quickly starts organizing into committees. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Miguel made a great point. It literally should have been a one-sentence proposition, right? Should Nebraskans have the constitutional right to possess medical marijuana? Yes. Right? Like,
well, even if they just didn't say medical, if they just said marijuana, wouldn't it have been a whole?
But the polling, because then you replace the word medical with over 21 and over, and then that usually polls pretty well. So let's talk about the likelihood. What are you familiar with any polls in Nebraska about if it will pass, Seth?
So I haven't seen any polls other than the ones that I've conducted myself. Right. So based on a jury, I think is good because it's a cross section of the community, right? You get all races, all genders, all ages, and
it's peers. The peers.
Yeah. And we're polling, I would say easily between 2/3 and 3/4 on people in favor of marijuana. And I think it'll pass. And I don't honestly expect it to be very close.
I just don't understand. Like, your state's beautiful. I've been to Nebraska one time because I had to drive from Whidbey Island to a school in Mississippi, matter of fact. But man, it's a gorgeous state, and I did have some weed with me, and I just think, every state's a great state to get high in, right? To smoke weed in and to enjoy yourself in, and just to be a regular human being. And I didn't see much. You have a pretty liberal state. The people are open-minded. The ones that I've encountered at the time. Hell, 311's from your guys' state.
Yeah.
What?
Seriously? 311.
311. Yeah.
I didn't think there was weed in Nebraska. Of course, like one of the guys that I went to college with was from Nebraska, and he smoked mad weed.
And they're farmers. I imagine they have some pretty.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about shovel-ready jobs, we got plenty of opportunity out here in Nebraska, right? Every politician loves that line. I mean, growing up, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, if you can believe that, out in the country, and we had ditchweed everywhere, right? I mean, it's well suited for the climate out here. The way I'm pitching it to people is, why is Kentucky bourbon a thing? Why is champagne, from the French region a thing? Why can't it be Nebraska green? Why don't we get ahead of this and create a sustainable economy that can benefit everybody within our state?
Because people in the state of Nebraska fucking love Nebraska. And so they would buy their own weed. But I thought it was awesome because, like, I Googled your estimate when you were polling the jury. You know what I got? You're right. You're basically like dead on. I got a result of 65% to 35% on this I side with poll that's out there. And so it's, who knows how representative it is. But out of all these polls, there was 163,000 for yes and 88,000 for no. So it's got a legitimate shot at the ballot this year.
And that was not medical. That was just marijuana.
I think it was tailored for the actual the ballot initiative that's up. So like that website made that one, and then you share it on Facebook. So I'm sure it's not a perfect poll, but neither is just asking a jury. I mean, it still seems like it's popular though.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that everybody else is doing it. The sky isn't falling, right?
I can
Colorado, our neighbor next door, is making money hand over fist, right? And so between people going to Colorado and buying their weed and then people going to Iowa to gamble, we're watching a ton of money leave the state, right? We're losing a ton of money every day on the interstate.
But think of the moral superiority, how smug you feel being a Nebraskan. And if you want to be a piece of shit and smoke weed, you can go to Colorado. Or if you want to go gamble away your money, you can go to Iowa. Is that what it was? Yeah, and then it was great if you also couldn't drink in Nebraska, and so they sent everybody to drink into Missouri.
Yeah,
those guys.
We'll be like that town from Footloose, right?
Yeah.
Nebraska, the town from Footloose.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hey, Seth, since you're a defense attorney, though, I mean, what are you seeing like yearly? What are you like defending? How from the ranges of like grams to pounds every day? How busy are you with the defense type?
Yeah, so we see a wide gamut. So I'm primarily out of Lincoln, right? So that's a college town. So we get a ton of minor possessions, small amounts. But then the Interstate 80 that runs through Nebraska, that's the fastest way to get from California to New York City, right? So it's not uncommon. I'd say every couple of weeks I talk to somebody that's carrying 200, 300, 400 pounds, vape cartridges, sometimes in the thousands, right, along Interstate 80. So they really patrol. I mean, it's ridiculous, the amount of law enforcement resources that get expended on Interstate 80. If you are a solo male occupant in a rental vehicle from out of state, especially a West Coast state, I've had people get followed for 2 hours on the interstate until they touch that center line, and then all of a sudden they're looking for any excuse to search that vehicle. And the saying is drugs go east, money goes west. And how it works is counties in Nebraska get to keep half of the money they found, right? So there was a bust in Seward County just down the road from Lincoln. I think $1.9 million was found. So that's $950,000 to the county. So there's a perverse incentive, right, to play highway robbers and
But I hate that, because what have you done? You've just taken the profit motive of illicit behavior, and you've just moved it on the line item into the general coffer of the government, and you've used it to fund the government. And so now the government is complicit in crime. And so I just disagree fundamentally with that type of legislation. But maybe it has something to do with the unicameral system that Nebraska runs on. What's up with that?
As far as the history of it, I have no idea. I think is it us and Maine are the only two that have it?
I thought it was just you guys, but maybe Maine also is a unicameral system. Or
maybe they were at one point. I think we might be the only one left.
Okay. So one thing that I want to know then is, do any conditions, count for this medical marijuana, or or how does that work?
So that has yet to be ironed out. Basically, the proposed language of the constitutional amendment says that you have the right to possess medical marijuana as prescribed by your doctor or your nurse practitioner. So we do see that it doesn't have to only be prescribed by a doctor. Nurse practitioners who have a lot of autonomy in Nebraska can prescribe as well. So we haven't ironed out a lot of these details as far as, does it have to be severe, right? Do you have to show Parkinson's or epilepsy or cancer? Or can we do Venice Beach circa 2001 where, I'm bulimic or what, obstructive sleep apnea?
We just call it Oklahoma now. Or is it just Oklahoma?
Yeah.
There are none. There's not a qualifying condition in Oklahoma.
Case of the Mondays.
Yeah, case of the Mondays. Nurse practitioner?
Damn right.
Take this to Walgreens. They don't serve it at Walgreens yet. Oh, down the street then.
Yeah. Oklahoma, as far as medical laws, they have, I think it's a great one because it's so, geared to the people, and it's not commandeering like California is trying to control, micromanage everything to the point where
market.
Right. Yeah. To the point where people, is it half or 2/3 of the marijuana industry is still black market in California?
Oh,
yes.
Sure. Yep.
The numbers are insane just because, the cost, because of all the taxes, people can't get licenses. So it's still, hey, I can still grow 20 plants at home. I might as well just, wheel and deal a little bit.
Well, here in
Personal use.
Washington, though, when it was medical, I was telling Tom that I could sell my weed to a dispensary. It was a nice market. And matter of fact, Pennsylvania's law coming up. I think, like Tom says, if you're going to get away with traditional market, I think Pennsylvania's got the best way where, as a citizen, I have the option to grow it and I can consume it, or I can just sell it to a dispensary and have it tested. Quality is always going to sell itself no matter what. Seth, what's the population of Nebraska? And what's a projected, if you guys do legalize it, the commerce? What is there anything like that?
I haven't seen the projections, but as far as population, I think we're sitting around 2.2 million as far as the entire state. So, yeah, not very populated compared to. Tom, you're out of not
I'm
Chicago,
in Illinois. Yeah,
Illinois.
Close to Chicago. I used to be in Chicago all the time before COVID. Now I just kind of hang out and wait for their. Remember events? Do you guys have events in Nebraska?
So as far as statewide, I think they're still doing rodeos and stuff like that. There's not a lot of restrictions in the smaller towns. Lincoln and Omaha are a little more hands-on with, the requiring the mask and the social distancing and stuff.
No, we're at 50 in Illinois. 50
is the people.
That's it. 50. What about you, Mickey?
What's that for?
How many people can you have in a space because of Corona?
Oh yeah, it's like 50. I mean, ever since I got sick that one time, I know it's real and I stay home. Dude, I'm not going to. I mean, it's sad to see the state that we're in. Like in Nebraska, being that, I work in an industrial main vein of America. Lots of business from China where I'm at, and it was only a matter of time I caught it first thing, but the fact that it's middle America is still kind of ignoring it, like it doesn't happen. Yeah, bro, wait till we come to your house and hang out for a little bit. The whole asymptomatic thing freaks me out, man.
I don't know. It's still here, but you know what? It's not cannabis legalization news. This is. So how do you envision the cannabis industry starting to come to Nebraska, Seth? Do you think what do you see? How
so as far as
take it?
So as far as where this goes, so I hope that we don't over and micromanage this, right? I hope that's my biggest fear is that we get this to a point where Lincoln only has. So we have some formulaic formula, right? There's only one store per 50,000 people or something, right? I want to avoid giving somebody a monopoly and being able to price out other people or, just have crappy products or not, I just don't trust the government to over-regulate those things, right? So that's what my worst fear is. Overall, I think that I think it will obviously take off faster in Lincoln, Omaha, but I think before you know it, it's going to get to the point where we say, hell, why didn't we do this earlier? Right? Like the sky isn't going to, like, we're going to see so little change. We're going to be making money off it. We're going to get people out of jail for minor offenses. Like, it just checks every box for.
Yeah. Because I bet that weight that you're seeing across I-80, that weight's still going to be illegal. That weight is going to be from out of state, so therefore it's illegal. Because the way that it's going to be defined, I bet it's going to be very state-based,
Yeah.
But all that won't come until after you resolve the constitutional issue, right? Like the regulation.
Yeah. So first step, I believe it's in the Supreme Court on Thursday or Friday this week.
Oh, wow.
It's getting argued there. So it should not take very long. I mean, we only have 60 days till election day, right?
Yeah.
Right. 60 days till no more campaign ads, right? That's what really everyone's counting down.
Yeah. Here's a hint. If you pay for YouTube Premium, you're not going to get none of them ads, and then no cable.
Yeah,
that helps.
Nice. What so since everything's after the fact, is it addressed like who will create that regulation? Is there a body like your health department, or who is going to be in charge of the actual structure?
Yeah, so what will happen is we'll say best case scenario, this overwhelmingly passes, right? So that's where we get stuck in this limbo, because the way ballot initiatives work is within 10 days of the results of the election becoming final, basically the governor has to say whether or not this passes, and it becomes part of our Constitution at that point. So that's where we get into this, what is actually going to happen, because it can be a constitutional right to possess medical marijuana, but we have no system to actually regulate that or to allow people to participate in it. So what is it going to be, the Wild West, right? Are people going to be busing truckloads back from Colorado? I don't think that we're going to see, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be in the Wild West there for a little bit.
You are.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be fan-frickin-tastic. Let me tell you.
Well,
for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be in this void where there's no proper structure. So I would imagine when the legislature resumes in January, that would have to be priority number one, right? Because that's, especially the more, if we're in that 2/3 mark, that's beyond politics, right? I mean, that's beyond political party, right? We're still dragging our feet on a Medicaid expansion or a Medicare expansion from like 2 years ago, right? That still hasn't been properly funded. But medical marijuana with 2/3, clearly, I think that'll be bipartisan, and hopefully we get something February, March, as long as what is this system going to look like, so we can get get the licensing and get people growing.
Do you think? I would see something like as soon as they pass the rule, if it became like legal, you're gonna have a bunch of entrepreneurs come out and a bunch of citizen lawyers. Like, hey, I'm following the rules.
I know how to read.
Yeah, I mean, we're here. I got my business license. We're good to go.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you're gonna have that after effect. Like Tom was saying earlier, how you get a bunch of lawyers together and then they have eventually committees. I mean, it's the same thing with marijuana, right? Like when it was medical here, everybody was doing their own thing, but then eventually things are growing to committees, NCIA or whatever you want. They realize there's strength in numbers and also in unity if people are on the same page as far as how they do business. And that's going to be something interesting to see how your regulation evolves.
Yeah, and I was just thinking of that. I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but we've seen the regulations and the laws around home brewing relax in the last 10 to 15 years. So I think you're going to see a similar kind of spike, right? Everyone was opening a brewery in every, trash can, right? But then eventually you get kind of people figuring it out. You get an association of people who are able to help each other, kind of band together and maybe get, right? Because every small guy can't afford their own lawyer on retainer, right? Yeah. But okay, as an organization, now we can hire, Miggy, or we can hire Tom, right? We can hire these guys to have them on staff and help and establish best practices. And so I think that will be really interesting to see how, things progress, and if it progresses similarly to, kind of the homebrew and the opening of microbreweries in Nebraska.
Are those fairly heavily regulated, or are there licensed caps?
So beer is fairly free rolling. Hard liquor, I guess, is just a pain. I've talked to people who have tried to open distilleries. I guess that's still pretty darn difficult to get the distillery side of things.
So I might break into some of it, but that's going to be pretty darn interesting. But then we first have to get some reporting back from you. Maybe over the course of the next 60 days, we'll know one way or the other if this sucker breaks. I mean, I'm really optimistic, but then, so you're telling me that there might be a constitutional right to medical marijuana in Nebraska by November 14th, 15th. When is the technical election day? November 3rd, November 5th?
Is it November 3rd? Is that right this year?
I've heard 3rd, I think. I mean, but I can't, I'm never 100%. So if you also heard 3rd, I'll say that one.
Yeah, let's roll with that for purposes of this. I apologize if I screwed that up.
Yeah.
But I think November 3rd.
Yeah. So maybe they don't certify the election for 4 days or so, but then you're telling me that by mid-November, constitutional right for medical marijuana in Nebraska could be a thing. That would be the shit.
The question though, if you get your constitutional change, so apparently your governor is not a fan of medical.
No, he is certainly extremely opposed to medical marijuana, and it's unfortunate, and that's
Can he block it? Is there a way, like, if the people say yes, we want this, but then because most states, because you have the one net system, whereas the governor will have to sign it to effect, or say even a national, like the president will have to sign to effect. Can your governor stop it?
So he couldn't veto the ballot initiative, but he could potentially veto the legislation passed by the unicameral. Right? So which would basically, in effect, cripple the ability to actually carry through the ability to follow through. But then you get back to whether or not we can get a supermajority to override the veto. So that's why this is going to be an interesting few months. And it's interesting for being a very red state. We're polling extremely high for medical marijuana. I don't know if that's out of the norm or if we're just
think it's reflective that because by polling at like 2/3, you're still actually kind of low. I think the average American's like an 80% supporter of medical cannabis. So and then I think it's, I don't know, that was like 60% actually support like full legalization. So the MORE Act coming up in Congress is going to be interesting. I had a politician call me today, and he's, they just want contributions. They do. And it's okay because, you have to contribute so that they can run some ads, so they can win their election, so they can do the voting how you'd like to see it. So I'd asked, you want some of those contributions. What about the MORE Act? Can we talk about the MORE Act before the contributions made? That's a good conversation that people should be having. I mean, it's going to be really neat. We're going to have like a roll call, hopefully, and then we'll have an index of who voted and who didn't vote for the historic cannabis legalization.
Yeah, and overall, I'm a big fan of it. Right, so we have the automatic, if you look at some of the main things, right? So you reinvest in the communities that have been hardest hit by the war on drugs, and you have the automatic expungement, which are two things that can get a lot of people not completely back on their feet, but at least remove some weight from their back, right? Like at least help them get up, right? These simple nonviolent possessions that are federal felonies that are holding them back, and to get that off the record and help them get a better job, and to reinvest in the communities and use some of the tax dollars for that. The opportunity is certainly there, and so it's a historical time, and let's see if we can actually get some support and get something.
I think some of the more liberal more liberal members of the Congress, they actually want to see that type of redistribution of wealth. They're like, they've set it up just like in Illinois, where it's like, well, yeah, who do you think was getting kicked the past 80 years? It just systematically took out these areas. That's why we call them disproportionately impacted areas. And that they've figured out ways to take the allocations of the revenue and try to funnel them back in there in a method to help repair it. Great. You know, wouldn't that mean like less crime because there'd be less poverty?
Yeah, right. Right. And then well, the income, the revenue. I mean, what Oregon just raked in 110 million. Chicago or Indiana, what 56 million?
No, Illinois hit over 60 last month, and then actually we should get August's numbers. I haven't seen August's numbers, and so those will be coming out any day. Simply because, and then Lauren, try to hook us up with like a graphic or something after we find Illinois' numbers for August, because first of the month we do our news summary redux, and then we can report on who's made what in the cannabis industry.
So you saying 60 million in 1 month?
Yeah, and there's less than 110 dispensary locations for 13 million people.
It's a lot of
yeah. Like, I mean, just right. You just have to
like just print that money.
Every budget shortfall at Nebraska. So we have as part of our constitution, we have to have a balanced budget, right? So it a lot of times gets in this gridlock over stuff. It's like every budget shortfall that we ever complain about here could be. I mean, just to extrapolate that, right? That's almost $1 billion, right? $720 million over the course of the year.
Well, it's in its first year, and it's most restrictive, and it's most supply constrained. So in 5 years, when there's many more licenses and wider availability and more public perception and acceptance, and this is a soda, but like you could have CBD beers or THC beers. I mean, like Lagunitas has a product, so that's going to be coming to Illinois as well. Yeah, I mean, it could be $2 or $3 billion a year. It'd be a legit huge business.
Yeah, just wild.
Let's not forget, medical marijuana is also about wellness. What's the population like, Seth, in your in Nebraska? Like, is it an older population majority, just like we were talking about earlier, how older people are more consuming?
Oh man, I wish I had those demographic numbers for you. Unfortunately, I do not. I'm sure Lauren could get those for us, but overall, I think it provides a great opportunity for people to at least try something else. Right. So instead of being on your hydros, instead of being on these opiates and just very heavy muscle relaxants and stuff, at least it gives you the ability to try something else.
Or alcohol. How many people in Nebraska they're allowed to have tobacco and they're allowed to have alcohol, a terribly non-winning combination. And so how many of the people in Nebraska would have saved that last beer, and maybe would have saved 2 beers, and so they would have been less drunk. What about that? I mean, that's the kind of stuff and data that I really like seeing coming out of states. And that's probably one of the reasons why after a state legalized, you kind of see the traffic fatalities go down and the DUIs go down, because there's a substitute good effect that's going on.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
forever, man.
In Nebraska, it'll be interesting because we have very lax, liquor and tobacco laws, right? So in a gas station, I can buy a handle of vodka, I can buy beer, and I can buy ammunition.
Oh, shit.
Right? So we'll, life's essential. So we'll see. I don't know. That's why it's just going to be interesting to see where marijuana falls, but I have a feeling it'll be fairly tight in the beginning. And then overall, as acceptance, we see, this isn't, the devil's lettuce. Everyone's not dying. We'll gradually see a loosening of those. At least I hope, right? At least I can hope to see that.
Yeah.
And get those people out of power.
Seth, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can we go to find or follow what you guys got going on at Berry Law?
Yeah, so you can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. We'll throw those links in the description. Thanks again for coming on, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We'll see you on Sunday.
All right. Thank you, everyone.